Cathay Pacific used to be considered one of, if not the best airline in the world, but with a bit of a decline in reputation and financial difficulties over the last few years since 2020, what is the business class experience like now in 2025, and is it worth the money? Today I'm flying from Cathay Pacific's home base in Hong Kong over to Bangkok in business class, but thanks to Oneworld status we'll also be able to try out Cathay's first class Pier Lounge, considered one of the best in the world, to check out some of the very best that Cathay have to offer. Let's get going. We made our way to the airport pretty early for this one. Our hotel room in Hong Kong was nothing special, and since we had first class lounge access available, we thought it'd be good to get to the airport early. Now it is actually possible to check in your bags at either Hong Kong or Kowloon Station, which is particularly useful if you're travelling to the airport via the Airport Express, but we opted to just go for a taxi rather than lug our big heavy cases through the streets of Hong Kong to get to the station. We made our way over to the first class check-in desk, which we have access to thanks to Oneworld status. Rather than having the usual baggage belts here, it is just a desk setup and someone will come and wheel away your cases. The whole process was really quick and efficient and the staff were really friendly. The business class check-in desks were just opposite this. A little bit of a queue there, but it did seem to be moving fairly quickly. We got straight through fast track security and then it was on our way to find a lounge. Now I mentioned at the start of the video that we have access to the Cathay Pacific First Class Pier Lounge, but thanks to our status and our credit cards we actually have access to 12 different lounges in this airport. 6 of those are thanks to Oneworld status, so that is the First Pier, the First Wing, the Cathay Deck Lounge, the Cathay Pier Business Class Lounge, the Cathay Wing Business Class Lounge, and the Qantas Lounge. And it's worth noting as well that even without status, if we just had the business class ticket, we'd still be able to access 4 of those. The only ones we wouldn't be able to access are the 2 first class lounges. The entrance to the Wing First Class Lounge is actually just after you go through security, but we decided not to go here today. Instead we opted to spend all our time in the Pier Lounge, which we heard was far superior, although it is a good bit further away from security. And if you do have a short connection time, you might want to pay attention to where your gate is and pick the nearer lounge. But as I said, there were 12 lounges we had access to, so what were the other 6? Well, these are all thanks to our Amex Platinum cards. These give us access to the Amex Centurion Lounge, 3 different Plaza Premium lounges, the Chase Sapphire Lounge and the Kira Lounge. But finally, we had arrived at the Pier First Class Lounge for Cathay Pacific. We made our way downstairs to the lounge where we received a warm greeting and then went for a quick explore. At first glance it's a fairly simple, unassuming space with a design that will be familiar to anyone who's visited any Cathay Pacific lounge before. There's a bar, plenty of different seating options, a buffet area or pantry with light bites to help yourself to, but we made a beeline for the spa. Cathay offer complimentary massages and spa treatments here, nothing spectacular, we're talking a 15-minute back and shoulder massage, but we're keen to try it out and that was a big part of why we arrived so early, as these can get booked up pretty early, as we found today. As unfortunately, despite arriving at the lounge 5 hours prior to our departure, the next available slot was at our boarding time, so you do need to get either very lucky or be exceptionally early to get free massage. It's probably not worth going out of your way for just a 15-minute treatment. So we then set out for the dining room to grab an a la carte breakfast. I started things off with a coffee whilst Kelly decided to try their wellness juice. Then to eat, Kelly went for a fruit plate and a poached egg, whereas I went for the Western breakfast. All really nice quality food and a great way to start out our lounge visit. I have to say though, the quality of the coffee here wasn't fantastic, and I definitely found out later on you are much better off ordering a coffee at the bar. And that's where we decided to head next to relax, grabbing some seats near the window. The bar area had been a little bit busy when we first arrived, but we found it had quietened down over the time we'd gone and got breakfast. And there's a really extensive menu here, plenty of wines, cocktails, spirits, plus a good range of non-alcoholic options as well. I just started things off with another coffee, but they took the time to do some of the most elaborate coffee art that I've ever seen in an airport lounge, and really nice quality too. And we just spent the next few hours relaxing in this space, having a couple of drinks from the bar, watching the planes out the window, maybe grabbing the odd snack if we got hungry, and it was just a really great space to relax in. Shortly after we got seated at the bar, we were greeted by the lounge ambassador, Christine, who came around to introduce the lounge and chat with us about our travels, really friendly. And it seemed like she genuinely did want to make sure that we got the most out of the lounge experience, just explaining to us everything that was on offer, telling us to make sure we went back to the dining room for lunch later on, and also seemed really keen to get any feedback on areas they could improve. We had thought initially that we might try out one of the other 11 lounges that we had access to, for example if our gate was going to be far away we might relocate, but as it happened our gate was announced to be quite close by, so we decided to just stay at the Pier First Lounge the entire time. And of course we headed back to the dining room for some lunch. For lunch there's a few options available. There is a standard a la carte menu, but there's also a tasting menu experience done in collaboration with a local restaurant. This changes out quite regularly, and whilst we were visiting, this was in collaboration with A330, which is actually a restaurant that we had visited whilst we were in Hong Kong. We'd had a really great meal here, and it was actually completely free thanks to our Amex Platinum cards. So Kelly decided to get the tasting menu, whereas I just stuck with the a la carte options. There wasn't too much on the tasting menu that seemed that appealing to me. And it was a bit of a weird tasting menu experience. They brought the first course initially, but then before she had time to finish that, they then brought out all the remaining courses, and all of these came out before my food had even arrived. So as much as the food might be restaurant-like quality, it's not quite a restaurant experience. But you know what, I appreciate we're in an airport lounge, a lot of people just want to get through their food quickly, so I won't knock them too much for that. Ultimately the food's really nice quality, especially the bits I ordered from the a la carte. Tasting menu is a bit more mixed. I think Kelly really enjoyed the amuse-bouche and the starter, but the stuff that followed wasn't quite as good. But really great to get food of this quality from an airport lounge. And the service throughout the meal, and also just generally in the lounge, was incredible too. Just really excellent and really friendly service. And after lunch it was pretty much time to board, so after chilling in the lounge for a short while longer, we made our way over to the nearby gate, excited to board the plane and get our journey underway. That said, I definitely think I could have happily stayed in that lounge a few more hours, not to mention the other 11 I could have tried out. I do kind of feel like I'll have to figure out another Hong Kong trip before my BA Gold status expires so I can try this out again. Very shortly after arriving at the gate, we were allowed to board and were amongst the first to get on the plane, which for today is an A330 with the business class cabin in a 1-2-1 configuration. Our first impressions of the seat were great. Whilst it's clearly not the most modern in Cathay Pacific's fleet, both the cabin and the seats themselves felt very light and spacious, and waiting at my seat was a pillow, a bottle of water and a menu. No other amenities though for this shorter flight. And I got myself seated, made myself comfortable and had a bit of a look around the seat. To the left are the seat controls, media control and a reading light, as well as a universal charging point, and next to this was a small storage compartment with a mirror and a space for the headphones. The most substantial storage in the seat is found down here, but then over to the right was a small literature pocket. This contained the safety card and a magazine, and then there was another cubby to store things underneath the right armrest. Above the seat was a reading light but no individual air vents. The armrest to the right is fully adjustable to make it more comfortable, and as you'd expect you can also adjust the headrest. Absolutely tons of legroom in this one. I can't even reach the footrest while seated, and I was looking forward to getting this reclined and trying out bed mode. The tray table swings out from the left hand side. It's not the biggest tray table in the world, even when it's fully folded out, and it doesn't really clip in place or anything when it's fully opened, but it was good enough and sturdy enough. And whilst I was getting settled, I received a really warm welcome from the cabin manager, who welcomed me back on board, presumably due to my status level. Later, she then saw me turning around to speak to Kelly and came over to ask if we'd like to move to sit next to each other, which I thought was a really nice touch, although we did decide to just keep the window seat. I had a look through the menu and orders were soon taken, and orders seemed to be taken by order of airline status, with myself and one other passenger receiving our orders taken before anyone else around us, and seemingly out of order. There were definitely a few signs of the seat showing its age, this iPod connection port for example, and the in-flight entertainment system crashed early on and kept resetting multiple times. When it did finally get up and running as well, it was also really unresponsive, and there did seem to be a very limited number of titles available in English, so I decided I'd probably just stick to my own entertainment on my tablet for this one, as well as keeping the moving map up when the screen was actually working. Wi-Fi was available in theory on this flight, but I could barely get it to work for most of the flight. Towards the end though, it did finally kick into gear, and actually worked quite well. Welcome champagne was offered and gladly accepted, and I thought it was really good as well that they did actually offer refills when they were coming round clearing glasses. And we also received a pre-departure hot towel. Eventually they managed to get the IV screens working for long enough to play the safety demo, and we were then able to push back. We had some really clear sunny days in Hong Kong, which does seem to be a rarity. It usually seems to have a lot of haze, but nice clear skies today for some great takeoff views. So whilst we're taxiing over and eventually take off, let me talk a bit about the cost of today's flight. Well, at the time of booking, the cost of this one-way trip was going to be 5,800 Hong Kong dollars, which was roughly £582 at the time. But instead of paying that £582 per person, we instead decided to use Avios. We booked this via the BA website and it cost us 30,000 Avios per person, plus just £50 and 80p per person in taxes and charges. So the pricing on this one not too dissimilar to what you might pay for a short-haul route in Club Europe if you were flying a short-haul route with BA. For that you would be getting the same seat as in economy but with the middle seat blocked out, whereas over in Asia we get a full lie flat seat. But let's get up in the air and see how that onboard service is. Once at altitude, it was time to kick back and relax. I got my tablet out to watch some Daredevil Born Again, kicked off my shoes, and then started to try and figure out the recline features of the seat. It actually took me a little while to get the hang of some of the precision controls, so for example the seat wouldn't recline until I brought the seat forward a little bit. But I really like the level of adjustability for the seat house. It's really easy to find a comfortable setting for you. And I always appreciate when a seat lets you bring the leg rest up without having to recline the seat back too much. Overall a really comfy seat to relax in, and we'll try out the bed mode properly a little bit later. But before I got distracted with the dinner service, I decided to make a quick stop to the bathroom and check that out. Not too much to note about the space itself, but they do have nice Bamford amenities. And granted this was early on the flight, but I was actually really surprised by how nice it actually smelled in there. Whatever they're doing with the air freshener, it's definitely working. It's not often an airplane bathroom stands out for having a nice smell. And back at my seat, it was about time for the dinner service to start. There was a small Parma ham salad thing for a starter, and then for my main, I went for the chicken rendang. This was all served on the one tray alongside my cocktail of choice, the Negroni. Always have to give the airlines a bonus point when they have this on their menu. The crew also came around and offered some bread. I clearly must have seemed a bit too excited when I heard that they had garlic bread because I was given quite a few pieces of that, and I was asked if I wanted more. And it was overall a really tasty, good quality meal. You know, there were a few bits and pieces in it that I didn't like and didn't eat, but I was overall really happy with it. And once that was finished, the tray table was cleared away, ready for dessert. The only dessert available was ice cream, which was a selection of Haagen-Dazs pots, so you could choose which flavour you wanted. I just went for chocolate. But it was one of those things you often see with ice cream on planes, where it was completely frozen solid. Could barely make a dent in it with the spoon initially. So I did have to sit and wait for that to defrost a bit. It's obviously a little bit of a lazy option to just serve out a pot of ice cream for dessert, but let's face it, it's the kind of dessert the majority of people will enjoy, myself included. And with dinner finished, there was nothing left to do but to recline back, relax, have a couple of Negronis, and watch my TV show. But I did make sure to take a break from this at one point to have a proper lie down and try out bed mode. Now with this being a shorter daytime flight, they didn't provide the proper bedding other than a pillow, but I still just thought it'd be worth trying out the lie flat feature and see how much space there is. It's a really long bed with tons of room for your feet, and it's a good width as well. And it's always really nice to be in a seat that doesn't have a really narrow foot cubby. It did seem like there might be a slight angle to the bed, so not completely lie flat, it seemed a bit higher at where the headrest was, but you kind of want that anyway, especially with the pillow just being a bit smaller. The pillow itself was soft and comfortable, and I actually found the seat padding comfortable as well. You know, even without a mattress pad or mattress topper, it was comfortable to lie down on, and I could easily see myself sleeping really well on this on a longer flight. And I did enjoy lying down for a bit before finally returning to just a reclined position for the rest of the flight. So, what are my overall thoughts, and where would I rank Cathay Pacific overall? Honestly, overall it had been a fantastic experience. The lounge was one of the best I've been to, and granted that's a first class lounge, but I'd much rather spend a few hours there than in Qatar's Al Safwa lounge for example, and the Cathay Business Class lounges are some of the best out there as well. The flight experience was also really impressive. Granted there were parts of the cabin that were showing its age, and the in-flight entertainment wasn't anything to get excited about. But despite that, the seat itself was really comfortable, the meal was good, the drinks menu was extensive, but I think one of the most impressive factors, and it's something that really doesn't come across on the screen here, is how good the crew are. Every crew interaction we had, from check-in to the lounge to on board, was absolutely excellent. Just incredibly helpful, really friendly, and really seemed to want to make sure that we enjoyed our trip. Is that enough to rank them among the best in the world? Honestly, I'd definitely put them up there in the conversation. I don't think I would ever flat out say I think they're the best, although I'd be very keen to try out their latest Aria suite to see how that compares to more modern business class offerings. But from this experience, as well as the recent economy flight I had with them, they're definitely an airline I'll really look forward to flying with again. Really keen to get your thoughts on this too. Have you flown with Cathay Pacific in business class? And where would you rank them against other Oneworld airlines, or just other airlines in general? This flight was part of a 3-month trip around the world where we did a number of Oneworld business class flights, as well as a couple of non-Oneworld options as well. So if you're not already, make sure you subscribe to check out the rest of those videos. And if you want to check out some of the other recent business class flights I've reviewed, then go ahead and click on this playlist next. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.